Hi, I'm Mr. Salter.
And I'm Mrs. Hall.
And welcome to the very first town hall meeting where we are aimed to inform you and take your questions focused around right now distance learning. Of course, we're always available. You can email us, you can call the office, but we really wanted to share with you for this first time the school district's distance learning plan and how that is integrated with our plan to work towards getting ready for distance learning to start on August 31st. So we're going to start first with an introduction. We have one brand new staff member this year at our school, and that is Mr. Andres Barrios. He is our brand new PE coach. All of our Lions will have the opportunity to get to meet him in distance learning when they have PE. So I know he's really excited to get to meet everybody. I also want to share a good news and celebrate our very own Mrs. Hall has been here since 1990 when the school first opened. And as of the end of this month, she will officially retire. So that's been 31 years that she's been working here at our school. And we're going to miss her so much. She has impacted students across decades at our school in both the classrooms and also the after-school care program as well. And we wish her the best. And our theme for this year, we always like to have a theme that we focus on that a lot of times will be based around a book or a quote. So for this year, it's based around the book The Dot by Peter H. Reynolds. And we're going to focus on a specific quote from that book in which the teacher in the book says to encourage and support a student that says, make your mark and see where it takes you. And we really feel like this is very important at this time because our students are about to embark on distance learning and having maybe some fears or some uncertainties. But everybody has the potential in them to be successful. We just have to encourage them. And in this book, the teacher encourages and supports the student to just make her mark and then see where it takes her. So first, getting into our distance learning plan, we first want to provide you with a background as to the factors that went into decision making. The very first factor that went into decision making for the district and us came from the Department of Education order earlier in July. And the order said that school districts had to have assurances that are met. Some of those assurances are listed here. One, for example, is that all students need to follow the district scope and sequence for each course. Another one is that students will have progress monitoring. And in the school district, students will still be taking assessments in grades K through 5 in math, in grades 2 through 5 in ELA, and grade 5 science, which we call unit standard assessments, or USAs, as your children might know them as. And then assurance number 6 is that data from progress monitoring will be routinely submitted to the Department of Education. So these are some of the assurances that as a district, if we are going to go to distance learning, we have to ensure are going to occur. And within that, some of the district's plan that we are using is that classes are going to be held on a schedule that mirrors the Bell schedule. So unlike back in the spring, and I know this probably answers one of your questions, back in the spring, we were very flexible. And our main focus was to provide students with flexibility given the circumstances at the time, and to try to provide them with as much support as possible. Well, now the state, in order for us to be able to do distance learning, the state is requiring that we have a schedule that would mirror exactly what we would do here at school. And that's where live instruction comes in. So as principal, and assistant principal, we have created a schedule that would mirror the exact same thing as if we were back at school. We're going to share that with you in a few minutes. But one of the things that will change from the spring is that now teachers are going to be providing live instruction through Google Meet daily, and that's live instruction for every subject. We also took a look at the survey that you filled out earlier this summer. We had 80 responses, and we asked you to share some positives and some negatives from distance learning back in the spring. And the school district has actually changed its language. Now this is distance learning. What we did back in the spring was more of virtual learning. It was more flexible, but distance learning is where we are learning the exact same schedule, the exact same way, the exact same curriculum and scope and sequence. It's just now we're behind a computer doing that. And so from the spring, some of the items in green, which were the items that appeared the most, was the live interaction in the Google Meets. Many of our teachers were providing social emotional support through having daily or weekly live interaction. And that was positive that you shared. Another one is that flexibility of work schedule. Now, this is an item that as a school, we met with our leadership team and we do have a plan to help address that. But once again, this is not going to look exactly like it looked back in the spring, where we allowed students to have until Sunday night to turn in their work. I'll share with you in a few moments what that's going to look like, but that is a key point from today's presentation. And I hope that by the end, you'll have a better understanding of what it will look like. And then also the availability of teacher and communication were other items, and we definitely want to continue that. Some of the negatives, though, was that there was a lack of engagement with instruction. And in reading your comments, it was more so with the tools that were used for instruction. There were a lot of videos that the students had to watch and so on. Navigating different apps, that's another item that we're going to get into more specifically. If not today, then next Thursday, August 20th, when we do another town hall, and then even into the future. But that's a big item that we're looking at. We want to try to streamline the student's experience and make it as simple as possible. And then also minimal face time with teachers and classmates. That will naturally be addressed through having live instruction every day in every subject. But also we're going to be looking at some other opportunities to try to mimic the same type of social opportunities that students have if they are here at school. And then the last item was finding things in the Google Classroom. So we are working on streamlining that as well. And if that's not addressed today in its entirety, it'll be addressed in a future town hall. We also had our teachers share their positives and their negatives. And a lot of these are the same as you. And I wanted, you as our family members and our community stakeholders to see this. One of the biggest positives was that the teachers had their communication with colleagues. We did a really great job as a staff of communicating and staying united and working through a very difficult situation. And other things came up was that the teachers really appreciated the school district's site that they created, that the Google Meets was wonderful for them. And they also appreciated the students having a flexibility. So that was a big talking point for us as we've been working with our teachers. And then they really appreciated your communication through different platforms. The negative, though, that really jumped out was they felt a lack of participation. And especially as a school, we saw that as time went on, our engagement dropped. In the beginning, in March and April, our logons to the student portal, our participation was high. But as we got into middle and late May, especially, it started to drop off. So that's something that we really are going to look at as a school, and we need to first and foremost, provide support and be sure that 100% of our students have the computer they need, have the Wi-Fi that they need. And then if there are other factors that are causing a drop-off, now with daily live instruction and daily following of a schedule, we hope that that won't occur. And if it does start to occur, we are going to have supports in place to try to reach out and provide support to keep all students engaged and supported. And so now it's time to start to share with you some of the items from our distance plan, now that we've provided a background into how the plan has been guided. So the first item is that every morning, just like at school, starting at 7:45, your students can enter their homeroom Google Meet. At school, teachers are at the door waiting for their students and greeting them at 7:45 when the bell rings. And the same will be true. The teachers will be logged into their Google Meet. Your child will not be able to get into the Google Meet without the teacher there. And so that's why that's going to be important, and our teachers are going to be in there ready at 7:45. But attendance won't be taken until 8. So 8 o'clock is when instruction starts, and that is when attendance will be taken. We will be following the district's plan, and that does entail that we are going to be marking students tardy, just like we would if they arrive after 8 o'clock, and we will also be marking students absent if they do not attend. If you have an excuse for the absence, just like the regular school year, we will definitely take those, and students will be marked as excused absences if that meets the criteria. And then, of course, within the first week, we are going to be flexible with our tardies, just like we are during the regular school year. So we are going to have at least a 1-week buffer period, because we don't mark tardies during the first week of school to try to provide that routine in place. But we are going to have to start marking tardies after the first week of distance learning. School-wide office hours. The school district requires that there is at least 30 minutes a day of office hours for teachers to be available to support you and your children. So as a school, we're going to have school-wide office hours from 2:30 to 3 o'clock every day. Please schedule, though, that time with your child's teacher. That's going to be important, unless the teacher notifies you otherwise. But just like during the regular year, we are still going to encourage there to be parent-teacher conferences and other ways to support you. So please be sure you reach out to your child's teacher or teachers for a 2:30 office hour appointment. One item, and this helps to address the flexibility positive that came out from the spring, is that we are going to be giving students 24 hours to complete a daily assignment. And they're going to find their daily assignments each morning in the classwork tab. Now, one thing that we're going to do is have teachers organize their Google Classroom in order on their classwork tab, in order of that day's schedule, so that students are working essentially from the top of their classwork tab down to the bottom throughout the day. But every morning at 8 o'clock, the assignments are going to be released, and then they're not going to be marked late until 8 o'clock the next day. Now, we do have students who have special plans that provide them with additional time. So those students will be provided additional time beyond the 24 hours if needed. But 24 hours is going to be the period that we provide. Now, what that does is it does provide flexibility, meaning that if your child does not feel comfortable turning in their assignment and finishing it that moment within, let's say, their 1-hour math block, then they will be able to save it, and then that night if your work schedule permits it, you're going to come home at night and support your child that way, then you can check. And then in a few minutes, we're going to talk about recorded lessons as well. So you're going to have the recorded math lesson, let's say that day, and you're going to have the math classwork, but the classwork's not going to be due till 8 o'clock the next morning. So this is going to look different for, let's say, fine arts and resource, which would have a lot less classwork involved, but they may have a project or something small due at the end of the week. But the daily classroom subjects, your core subjects, it's going to be due 8 o'clock the next day. And going along with that, the flexibility piece as well is we decided as a school that we are not going to have mandatory homework during distance learning. We will revisit that though when schools do reopen, and we will today just be focusing on distance learning. But while 100% of our students are distance learning, we will not have mandatory homework, because we do want to provide that flexibility, that it is our expectation that children are participating in the live instruction from 8 to 2 every day, but your flexibility is helping your child at home at your pace that day. And so if we're providing mandatory homework, for some families, we're providing you with double the work to do at night. So we are going to provide, though, optional learning resources that you could use at home if you would like that additional practice for your child. And we will have in the classwork tab a optional activities section. But once again, we're not going to have homework on top of the classwork for the subjects that day. And now I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Hall, who's going to give you an overview of both a primary schedule and an intermediate schedule.
Hi, everyone. The first schedule posted is a sample of a daily schedule for a primary student, which would be kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. You will be receiving a paper copy, and this will break down your child's day. It will take each subject and show you the times that they will be expected to be online on their computer in their Google Classroom or on their Google Classroom Meet link. And it will show you when your child will be taught live from the teacher. For example, in an ELA block, this is where your children is doing reading and writing. They will have a whole group lesson, and it will say, for example, CKLA whole group live instruction. This means your child will be working in the whole group with the children, and the teacher will be directly teaching them live on the Google Meet link. Then it may say something like small group rotation live instruction. What this means is your child will be working in a small group with other students on similar levels with the teacher directing them. This will be live in the small group, and these rotations will be set up by the teacher, and they will notify you of a schedule. For example, your child may meet daily for 15 minutes a day, or maybe on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, based on your child's individual needs. Also on the schedule, it will show when your children are doing independent activities, like they may be doing iReady for reading, or they could be doing Success Maker for math, or independent practice and questions. So these things will be listed on the schedule for you for each subject: ELA, mathematics, science, and it will also show you when your child will be having other activities like their morning meeting or physical education lesson, as well as their fine arts class, which we still do on a weekly rotation, and a recess time. The next schedule we have is a sample for our intermediate students. Our intermediate students are grades 3, 4, and 5, and they do switch classes throughout the day, meaning they have more than one teacher. For example, a third grade class may have 2 different teachers, one for ELA and one for mathematics and science, whereas our 4th and 5th grade students have 3 different teachers throughout the day. They have 2 ELA teachers, one for reading and one for writing, and then one for math and science. So an example of this schedule will show how the students will go throughout the day learning their subjects, from the reading block to the writing block to the math or science block. and it will show when the child is being live instructed with their teacher compared to when they will be working independently on activities given by the teacher. So you will have a schedule mailed to you as a paper copy. These schedules will also be posted in your child's Google Classroom. If you need any assistance with your schedules, you have the ability to reach out to your teacher or to Mr. Salter and myself.
Thank you, Mrs. Hall. And next Thursday, August 20th, when we record our next town hall, we are going to get into more details about what this will look like and how your child will be moving virtually throughout the day. We are going to try to simplify that process as much as possible while also balancing the ability of the teachers to be able to be the moderator and control our live Google Meets. And we're going to be working to put that presentation together to try to show you and model for you not only what a Google Classroom looks like to help navigate it, but also to have more details for you next Thursday for the experience that your child will have. So I mentioned earlier that teachers will be recording live instruction, and that is another new piece that makes distance learning now different than what it was back in the spring. And so after the first week of student attendance, all live instruction will be recorded and it will be kept in the Google Classroom until the end of that trimester. The teachers are going to be putting these live lessons that they recorded every day for every subject in the classwork tab under that specific subject. So in math, for example, each day there will be the recorded lesson and there will also be the classwork that corresponds with that. Teachers will not be releasing work until the day of, in our hopes that the classwork tab won't get too busy and won't get too filled up with work. So that's why it's going to be released at 8 o'clock every day, and then the teachers will upload their recorded lessons really by the end of the day, but if they can throughout the day during breaks and such. So the recorded lessons will be available ready for you, especially during the evening time if your family needs that flexibility. Whole group live instruction will be recorded and, like I mentioned, posted to the classwork tab. This also includes our III, which stands for Immediate Intensive Intervention. And that will also be recorded because it is the same group of students working together on reading skills all 5 days of the week. What won't be recorded would be like a small group that in math, for example, might just be on that day's lesson and those students just needed a little extra help. Or like Mrs. Hall mentioned, maybe a reading group that only meets like 2 days a week. That instruction won't be recorded, but all other, especially whole group lessons for that day that the classwork goes along with, will be recorded. And then also too, if your child does receive services for ESE or ESOL, or maybe meets with a resource teacher for extra support, those teachers are going to be meeting with our students separately, and they will also be recording those lessons, since those are groups that do, for the most part, take place 5 days a week. And then fine arts will also be recorded. Students will be invited to a fine arts Google Classroom for each of our 4 fine arts. And this year, we are including a STEM lab fine arts. So students will be receiving extra additional teaching and support in that area of science and STEM. And those teachers will be posting their daily recorded lessons there as well. So in the Google Classroom, as your child gets invited to their new Google Classroom, take a look at some of these features. And like I mentioned, next Thursday, we'll get into even more details and model it for you. There's the stream. The stream, if you think of like Facebook, it's kind of like the wall of the Google Classroom. It's where you can post and you can comment. We really want to use that for students to ask questions or for teachers to share and post some important announcements and things like that. There's the classwork tab that I've referred to a lot already. One section or one topic in the classwork tab per subject. And then also the teachers will be creating a separate tab for optional activities, aka homework. So if that's something that your family wants to participate in for your child at night, that's where you'll find those optional activities. And then people. So this is where we're going to monitor students who've accepted their invitation, and then also the Guardian summaries. And we do encourage you, if you get invited, the Guardian summaries is a great tool that you'll receive emails and notifications about your child's work and other aspects of the Google Classroom. So now I want to share with you some upcoming events, and then we're going to get into some of the questions we received this week. So first of all, this morning, we had a wonderful kindergarten drive-through, and it was so great to welcome all of our new kindergarten Lion Cubs. And we're going to have the same drive-through, but for grades 1 through 5 on August 27th. We are wanting to be sure in the overview down there at the bottom that we do provide you with a check-in where we greet your family. They're going to inform you of your child's teacher if needed. And we'll be reminding you if you did indicate on the return to school questionnaire if you needed a Chromebook. So our goal as a school is to have every single student with a laptop, Chromebook, or computer at home. Back in the spring, we were limited and we could only give you one per family. Now, though, we really want to be sure that every child has it who needs it. So if you completed the return to school questionnaire, question number 2 and 3 revolved around that. So please be sure that you take note if you did mark that, and we'll remind you if you did. But also, if you haven't done that yet, it's going to be very important that you complete that questionnaire. And then also, we're going to have a station for each homeroom teacher, and they're going to give their students bags with textbooks for this year or other supplies they need. We're also going to give you back your supplies from last year. So first graders will get their kindergarten supplies that they got. We hope that that will help maybe jumpstart the classroom supplies for this year so that they'll get their art box back with their crayons and all those things in it, or notebooks and anything that can be reused, especially this year. And then also, if you haven't picked up your pictures or yearbooks yet, we're going to distribute those out. And then anything else that the teachers might have. But most importantly, it's that chance for us and your children and your family to make that first connection. Even though we're all going to be wearing masks, and we have to keep socially distant, we do feel like that is a very important piece, that your family still gets to come to school, drive through, and meet your child's homeroom teacher. And then August 28th, we will provide a makeup if you can't make it on the 27th, or any of our kindergarten families who couldn't come today, from 8 to 10. And then that day we have our virtual Meet the Teacher, and that will take place in your child's homeroom Google Meet link. And for grades K through 2, you get to either pick 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. But please be mindful that the teachers will be starting on the hour. And so it's not like where you can come in at any time. You have to either pick a 10 o'clock start time or an 11 o'clock start time. And then grades 3 through 5 will do a 1 o'clock or a 2 o'clock. So questions. We did not receive many this week, but maybe today's presentation will generate. And any questions that we received that have already been addressed in today's recording aren't included in our questions section. But of course, if you have any more that are generated, please use the Google form again to submit new questions. And then as always, we're always happy to speak to you over email or by phone. So our first question says, will there be opportunities for small group socialization for students via Google Meets? Perhaps during lunch, an open Google Meet for the classroom for those who'd like to join. So this is definitely a very big topic that we've been talking about already. We recognize that for distance learning, there will be some natural times of the day that students are going to lose out on socialization, like lunch, for example. So one thing that we have talked about is on certain days, providing a like a lunch bunch party where the kids can stay in the Google Meet and eat lunch. And we've talked about having our school counselor or behavioral health professional to maybe come in and do like some activities, and providing teachers with that flexibility to do the same thing. So, right now, we are, though, operating off of the teacher contract, which means that they do have a duty-free lunch. So right now we will be operating that lunch will be a break, and that students will take a break for those 30 minutes and eat. But we do recognize that that is a time that we can provide those opportunities. So it's something that we are working on. And this next question, even though I'm not getting into returning to school just yet, because we as a district and as a school are still working on that, and that is ever, it's something that we're ever growing and working on. And I do encourage you to watch the school board meeting. There's a special workshop next Wednesday, August 19th, and there was one last night as well. But I can answer this question. And that is, when the phase to reopen based on grade begins, will parents have the ability to continue to distance learn, or will these children be mandated to return in person? So two parts to this question. The first part is that the school board last night did agree that the new returning to school plan will not involve the staggered start like originally. So the other part of it is that parents will have the choice whether or not their child returns to school or their child can stay in distance learning at home. So I can't answer that question. More details about that is coming. And like I mentioned, I encourage you to watch the school board meeting. And as I get information from the school district, and as we start to put together our plans to reopen school, I definitely am going to be on here with town halls and recorded presentations for you all, and be able to be available to answer any questions that you have. But at this moment, we're focused right now on distance learning, and our town hall next Thursday, August 20th, will be focused on distance learning again. So you'll get a copy of this in your email and on Facebook, and I encourage you to please use the Google form that I sent out for this town hall again to submit new questions that are generated between now and next Thursday. So take care, everybody. Please be safe. Lions, we miss you very much. We can't wait to see you on August 27th and 28th, and then every day starting August 31st. Take care, everybody.